Welcome to this episode of Uplifting News Sleep Aid Daily, where we read you good news to fall asleep to. Today is Saturday, April 25th, 2020. Our uplifting stories include Publix grocery store buys excess milk and produce from farmers and donates it to food banks. NYC will serve 500,000 free meals during Ramadan. Steakhouse regulars picked up a to-go order and left their entire $1,200 stimulus check as a tip. And koalas treated at the world's only all-koala hospital are finally being released back into the wild after Australian bushfires. Now, breathe in. Breathe out. And relax as we dive into these stories. Our first story is from CBS News by Danielle Garand. Publix is buying excess milk and produce from farmers and donating it to food banks. Farmers around the country have been forced to dump milk and waste fresh produce as schools, restaurants, and other institutions remain closed due to the coronavirus pandemic. In response, supermarket chain Publix launched a new initiative Wednesday to help struggling farmers and get the food to Americans who need it most. The company's press release said it will purchase fresh produce and milk from the farmers impacted by the COVID-19 crisis and donate the goods directly to Feeding America food banks that are in its operating area. During the first week of the initiative alone, some 150 pounds of produce and 43,500 gallons of milk is expected to be donated, the company said. As a food retailer, we have the unique opportunity to bridge the gap between needs of families and farmers impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, said Todd Jones, Publix CEO. In addition to providing much-needed produce and milk to food banks, this initiative provides financial support to farmers during this challenging time. The company will purchase food from Florida produce farmers and southeastern dairy farmers through the initiative. It is kicking off Wednesday and is expected to run for several weeks, according to the release. In addition to the new initiative, Publix supermarket charities recently made donations which totaled $2 million to help Feeding America's member food banks amid the crisis. Our next story is from Bloomberg by Henry Goldman, read by special guest Kimberly Marable.
To all those who celebrate, Ramadan Mubarak. NYC to serve 500,000 free halal meals to Muslims during Ramadan. New York City intends to serve 500,000 halal meals during the Muslim holiday of Ramadan, in the leading edge of a program that could feed as many as 2 million residents unable to pay for food, Mayor Bill de Blasio said. About 400,000 halal meals will be distributed at 32 Department of Education buildings, and another 100,000 will be served through community organizations during the month. It's part of a program that has served at least 10 million grab-and-go meals at 435 sites, and via taxi to housebound New Yorkers at a cost of at least $170 million. One of Ramadan's most noble callings is to feed the hungry, de Blasio said during a Thursday news briefing. To remember to be there for those in need, and that is now harder than ever now that people can't go to their mosques. Ramadan began Thursday evening and ends the evening of May 23rd. The holiday marks a period of spiritual reflection and self-improvement that includes the practice of fasting from dawn until sunset. City officials expect the food crisis to become more acute. The mayor has estimated the city will lose at least 475,000 jobs due to the lockdown forced by the COVID-19 pandemic. De Blasio said city officials expect to provide at least 10 million meals this month and are prepared to serve 15 million in May. The mayor gave no ultimate cost estimate. No New Yorker will go hungry, he vowed. Your city will provide.
This podcast is hosted on Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free, there's creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Our next story is from K Arc by Haley Brooks. Regulars tip steakhouse entire stimulus check. A steakhouse in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, found themselves at the receiving end of a kind gesture. Things have been barely getting by, but we're making it through, said Allison Hall, the general manager at Colonial Steakhouse. Colonial Steakhouse in Pine Bluff got a tip they won't soon forget. We just started crying and thanking God because it came at a time that most of our staff really needed it, said Hall. Allison Hall is the general manager at the steakhouse, owned by her parents. Hall said regulars at the business picked up a to-go order and left the staff a huge tip. She was just sobbing and saying it was their whole stimulus, said Dana Gately, the owner of Colonial Steakhouse. The tip was $1,200. Gately said it was enough for every employee, even the ones not working, to get $100. It was nice to be able to call with some good news. Hall said it couldn't have come at a better time. Since restaurants can only do curbside pickup, Colonial Steakhouse had to cut down its staff from 12 to 4 people. On top of that, they are now only open 3 days a week. We've been open for a very long time, nearly 50 years, so we're stubborn and we aren't giving up. We are not going to give up, said Hall. While the steakhouse is ready to open back up, they are ecstatic for this act of kindness during a hard time. Our last story is from CNN Travel by Lilith Marcus. Koalas injured in Australia bushfires re-released into wild. In a spot of good news, several koalas who were injured in bushfires in Australia in 2019 have been re-released into the wild. The marsupials are being treated at the world's only all-koala hospital, located in the New South Wales town of Port Macquarie. One of the most famous of the group is Onwin, a female whose photos went viral due to the severe nature of her burns. They covered 90% of her body. She was the third patient admitted to the Port Macquarie Koala Hospital in October 2019. Now, though, she is joining several other koalas who have been resettled at the Lake Inns Nature Reserve in New South Wales. Onwin is one of 26 koalas to be returned to their habitat over the course of a week. Hospital employees carefully considered a mix of koala ages and sexes in order to make for a well-rounded community, especially since they hope the animals will breed and grow their population in the wild. But it wasn't only the koalas who had to heal up and rest. Though the Lake Inns area was badly damaged in the fires, higher than expected amounts of rainfall made it possible to release the animals sooner than planned. While we were all facing difficult and uncertain times, this incredible story of hope serves as a reminder of the resilience of our incredible flora and fauna and people, Philippa Harrison, Managing Director of Tourism Australia, said in a statement. Tourists aren't headed to Australia at present, but there are still ways to support the koalas from home, namely the hospital's Adopt a Koala online program. For a country battered first by natural disasters, then by the effects of worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, Australia is happy to have some positive news to share. That's it for tonight. Whoever you are and wherever you are, thank you for joining us at Uplifting News Sleep Aid Daily. Stay safe and stay inside.